Hello, everyone. This should have gone out on the 12th. It didn't, but here's the dev diary for what got done up to December the 12th. We spent a lot of work on the credit cycle, so just making it easier for people to pay money, look at their credits, work out what's happening. There was also quite a lot of work done on deleting a tenant and cleaning it up, which I wanted to show you. Uh, Found a bunch of bugs in admin. Not so much in admin. Tenant admin actually works really well. Tenant users and tenant viewers, not so much. I'll show you a little bit about pagination and runs. And when I show you pagination and runs, I'll show you our superadmin functionality for the first time. So this might be quite helpful if you are developing your own app and vibe coding it, right? Like, how do you actually do some of these things? And then we're going to test the flow. Now, to start with, I'm going to create a new user or a new tenant and go through the credit cycle. So that makes sense. Let me show you what this looks like at a really basic level. Uh, this app has been largely vibe coded, so if it could be quite helpful for you. So let's say I want to create a user. Just putting myself in there. If you're doing this in the um, production environment, it'll ask you for a code, and then you've got to put that code in one time pin, that kind of thing. I'm obviously doing it in our local host, just in dev, so that's why you won't see that particular piece. Now, when I create an account, this is where I come into, right? And the basic functionality of this app is it allows you to transcribe or interpret meetings or just something you say to yourself. And off the back of that, do agentic stuff, right? Stuff in terms of you can set up a number of steps and it'll do whatever you need. For now, I'm just going to show you the basic transcription flow. So this is obviously in English. I'm on transcribe. You know, this is where I am. We need to add a whole bunch of onboarding. And when we get to that, I'll show you what that onboarding looks like. A lot of it's going to be pretty interesting for me also. So, bit of a journey. So what you have to do is basically click the start button. So it's a one click. What you're seeing there is the transcription happening live in my dev environment. It's actually possible to speak pretty naturally and it works just fine. I'm just doing it a little bit slower so you can see what's happening. If you think of a meeting between two people or someone recording their thoughts and they want something to happen off the back of it, that's the idea. You can see accuracy is pretty good, which is the other reason why I'm doing it slowly, so you can listen to what I'm saying and then read it. But now I'm just going to click stop. Off the back of clicking stop here, what's happening is it's going to save the transcription. Now, that looks like it's a little bit of a bug there, so I got to fix that. But then you get a summary and you can email that to yourself or you can download it. What we think of summary is whatever happened post transcription, off the back of which you can do things. So I could show you the summary now. So if I click on download the summary, get something like this, which, let me just drag the screen over and you'll be able to see it. So there's a bunch of text, there's the conversation summary, some key points, nothing particularly happened there because when I discovered that that word is a little bit off, I wasn't transcribing at that point. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Okay, now what do we want to focus on? Today I wanted to focus on showing you what the credit cycle looks like. Okay, so I've used it a little bit, and if you have a look, I've used some credits here. Awesome. You can also see I've got this trial here, and that's reducing depending on what's happening. Now, when you create an account, you're automatically logged as the admin for that tenant. What that means is you're able to see what's in the credits and the members, right? So if you're just a user, you won't have this screen, but you do now. You can see I've got, it was originally 25 cents US, and that equals 25 credits. Um, that's what that looks like. Now let's have a quick look at the credits. Here we can see what actually happened, right? So you can see I started some stuff. There's a bunch of tokens that have been used by the transcriber, and after that, there's a largest use of tokens by the summarizer. Why is the summarizer larger? Because you're basically taking the entire real-time transcript, sending it to the summarizer, which is then summarizing based off a prompt we give it. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Ask me, I guess, if it doesn't. Here we've got credits. Now, the way we've done this is I can click buy credits, and it does that. Now, this is obviously a fake number, so that's the entire flow, right? This used to be a lot more complex in the past. You had to first link your card and then add things to it, and it was just really quite painful to do. So that's how that works. And now you can see that, the current balance has gone up. It went from 22 credits to 1,022 credits because it was $10. It's basically $1 is 100 credits. We don't at the moment have the ability to charge in different currencies. It's something I'd really like to do. Let me know if that's something you're keen on, me showing how that actually works. But yeah, that's the credit cycle. And you can see this has obviously become a plan. It says it's 100%. It's calculating it off the back of the last sort of payment bit that you did. There's also add card, delete card, you can manage your card, all the usual things that you would expect to see. Let me know what that looks like and if you liked it. Okay, second part that I wanted to show you. Deleting a tenant has been made much simpler. Right. Let me show you a little bit about what superadmin looks like, and then we'll get into deleting the tenant from within and without the application. So as an admin, you can click this and you can request your account deletion, right? It'll just get nuked, you'll get kicked out, and you don't have an account anymore. If you're a user, you won't see this, and if you're a viewer, you definitely won't see this. Let me log out though and show you what we've done in terms of superadmin, because I wanted to show you a little bit around superadmin. Okay, so this is what superadmin looks like, and as you can see, there's a lot more to it. This is what a user with all the functionality will see. Most users don't need to see this, so we hide it. This is tenant level stuff. So obviously when I showed you the last one, you could see tenant settings and user settings. In a future bit of dev, I need to add in the audit for the viewer right now. So the viewer needs to be able to see the audit tab. But what I want to show you here is tenant oversight. this is our global sort of tenants, and here you can see the tenant I had. What we're able to do is, if I click on this, you'll see that I've got credits. And, I can see what's happening with this particular account, and there's users in this account. And there's a whole heap of things. We'll do a full episode on superadmin and what it means. One of the things I can do here is delete a soft delete and purge as nuke. So this is related to uh, a lot of legislation that's come in where if you have a user and they want everything deleted, how do you get everything off your thing? Now, back in the day, well, even just a couple of years ago, you wouldn't really delete anything because it caused a lot of problems in the database. And, history tables would be referring to things that were removed and all of that. So everything was just a soft delete. These days, it is kind of a hard delete. So when we get rid of your data, we nuke it completely off our systems, right? It's like it was never there. And you can see how when we're doing a purge, there's all this stuff that represents the underlying database, and we're deleting all of it, right? I'm not going to do that because I want to do some more testing and show you some other stuff, but fundamentally, I wanted to show you that when you're thinking of building your own app or using an app like ours and getting particular functionality in there, you do need to think about how the backend works. And often the backend is more work. And by backend, I mean not just how the server works and the database side of it, but also how your operation staff are going to use it, right? All of that stuff. So it's something you really want to think about because decisions made there will radically define and sort of set out what you can actually do. Let me log out of that. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you the pagination and runs and testing the flow. So let me just go back into superadmin. One of the things we have, and if I look at this, is what we've got is policies. Now, policies, and that's what the structure looks like in a JSON form, it actually defines what the various tabs are that you're looking at, right? So at the moment, the policies for this tenant, which is kind eucalyptus quimen, that's the name of the tenant, which we were in earlier, we can see that the dashboard is always visible, tenant settings are always visible, the chat is always visible, and user settings are always visible, right? So these are the 4 tabs that you have. The things that aren't visible are everything else, right? And you can see that there's a number here that are use policy default, which basically means, depends on the policy, and there's never, right? So supervisor is functionality that we want to implement that hasn't yet been implemented, so we don't show it. It's that simple. Again, this kind of policy level stuff is something you really want to think of in terms of how users will actually interact, or tenants in our case will actually interact with your application. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the conversations and runs to true, right? So I've just made this change. I hit save, and then I log out. And then let's have a look at what that looks like. So as you can see, I now have these 2 new tabs here. So hopefully that made sense to you. Policies at a tenant level say what tabs or what pages you have access to. And we also actually use a security mechanism, right? So if you don't have that policy, you're not going to be able to navigate to that page, even if you were to key it into the URL bar and try to go that way. Obviously, in the apps, that doesn't really come up. If we look at conversations, you can see what I have here is just sort of one conversation, and that's fine. Um, and what happened with pagination is basically uh, you should see something called total one here. And if I just reduce the size of my screen a little bit, you can now see that you know it all sort of works out. Page one, there's apply, clear, previous, next, refresh. I've given these all nice little icons and changed around. Um, let me show you the mobile view. Right, so this filters was a bit of a mess in the past. That still doesn't look great, but it's a lot better than it used to be, and I need to do a little bit of work to clean that up, obviously. But most of what I did was just changing the pagination and showing that nicely. Now, if I go back home and we look at runs, you'll see it's kind of similar, right? Runs are a little bit more interesting. What's happening in runs is a conversation from our perspective is a guided sort of flow through what we call an orchestration. And I'll get into this a little bit more when we do the superadmin functionality. The orchestration is we had a conversation, some stuff happened. What next? Right? So in our case, the orchestration has two runs within it. The first run was the transcriber, where we're transcribing the content that the people having the meeting or whatever are saying. And the second one is a summarizer. So we're summarizing now this content. And you can see sort of when you're looking at building voice agents or anything along those lines, that's how you would do most things, where there's a transcription event or an interpretation event. In our case, if you're supporting multilingual audiences, um, and then there's a summarization event or other events. Um, I'm not a huge fan of how we've built the summarizer because at the moment you just have buttons that say download or send an email. The way we should do it is after the summarizer, the orchestration should then roll into a should I send email? Yes, no. And what are the preferences of the user from the last time they did this? And let me just try and do that again. Right. Because you want your agents to sort of learn what you're doing and then do more of that. Yeah, so that is what I want to show you about pagination and all of that and runs. Yeah, cool. Well, I hope this was interesting to you if you're in the business of building apps or would like to build apps or would like to use apps and learn how these things are built. And I'm hoping to do more of this and start showing you code and all of that so you can really appreciate what's going on. And when you use apps, craftsmanship, right? Like you want to use something that's well built and nice. Thanks so much. I will see you again and, like the video and stuff.